Hello, 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 friends. Thank you if you're here watching the replay. I appreciate you stopping by, checking this out. My name is Svava Brooks. I am a trauma recovery coach, and I love to hang out here on Periscope and YouTube live with my fellow survivor thrivers as we work our way through my book, one day, one page at a time. If you'd like to learn more about the services and the support that I offer for adults healing and restoring after child abuse, neglect, and trauma, please visit my website, svavabrooks.com. And if you're here live, right here, right now, please say hello. Please let me know that you're here. Let us know that you're here so we can welcome you and say hello. Let us know where you're from. And if you have any questions about healing or trauma or recovery, feel free to pose, ask a question, and if I don't know the answer, I'll turn it to the community. There's lots of wisdom in this space, or feel free to send me a message. But we're glad you're here. Glad you're here. Hey, friends, how are you doing? Hey, Rachel. Hey, Rob. How are you? Good to see you, my friends. I brought my scarf today. I was feeling cold this afternoon. Ooh, extra layer. Don't know why, because it really is not that cold out, but just one of those days. Can't seem to get warm today. So yes, thank you. I'm a scarf lady. I love scarves. Thank you. This is one of my favorites. It's starting to look a little worn, but it's loved, I say. Hey, friends. So I have all kinds of scarves. I have to admit, looking back, I haven't been wearing that many lately, but I do wear them around the house and keep myself warm. Yes, I like my neck to be warm. Yes, exactly. Is it warm in late April? Can't say that it's warm, but it's definitely starting to feel like spring. The cherry blossoms are blooming here in Portland, Oregon. So we are very happy about that. You stay freezing too. I'm sorry, friend. I'm sorry. Yeah, some days it's just like seems to be harder to to warm up. But the part of me that is always warm is my heart. And my heart sings, as always, to be here with you guys today and every time we're here. So, hey, Sue, how are you doing, friend? Good to see you. Good to see you. I heard from a couple of our friends today letting me know they weren't going to make it tonight. So, hey, Elizabeth. Hey, friend. Good to see you. Glad you're here. And to my Periscope friends, if you're here, you want to say hello, please let me know where you're from so I can welcome you. And maybe I should tell you, I'm coming to you from Portland, Oregon today, originally from Iceland. So Little Rock, nice. Yes, we have people all over. We have some UK people in the house, New Jersey, Texas. Well, I'm there from 26th of April through, you're going to be in the States for a whole month, Rob? That's awesome. That's awesome, my friend. It was so funny. I went and got a cup of coffee this morning, a little catching up here before we dive into our deep conversation today about boundaries. But I went to get a coffee, a little treat. And the guy who was helping me at the coffee shop, good, yay, Elizabeth, you passed your exams, woohoo! The guy who was helping me at the coffee shop when I came back to pick up my coffee, he's like, do I detect an accent? And I'm like, yeah, maybe. So he's like, where are you from? I said, well, I'm originally from Iceland. And he lit up because he's like, oh my goodness, my mom is from Iceland. So he spoke a little bit of Icelandic. And of course, I answered him right back. And then, of course, because Iceland is so small, we're all cousins. So I had to ask, what's her name and where is she from? And I didn't recognize her name, but I know the town where she's from. So we had a good laugh about that. And then he also, yeah, exactly, like a long relative. That's right. And so he also shared with me that he had lived in Norway. And I shared that I lived in Norway as well when I was younger. When I was 10 years old, we lived in Norway for a year. So I said, yes, I can still speak Icelandic, and I probably always will. But when it comes to speaking Norwegian, and actually I learned both French and German in school in Iceland growing up there, but none of that. My English is just taken over. So only 2 languages in my head at this point. So anyways. So that's my story for today, guys. And so I'm so excited for you, Elizabeth, to hear you passed your test. Woohoo! Congratulations. What a relief. What a relief. Yes, and Rob, we're going to have to get your itinerary when you are heading over to the States. Please keep us posted. Keep us posted. Hey, Periscope friends, glad you're here. Glad you're here. There you go. Doing my best, using my motivation to move forward. There you go. That's it. Like everything else in life, we set these goals and then baby steps, baby steps. So we're going to turn to the book. And even if you're here and you don't have the book, don't worry. Our conversations are, right? They're all standalone, so to speak. So I'm going to set up the topic for us today, and then I ask a couple questions. And if you'd like to chime in and share and comment, we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear from you. But the topic is healing and recovery after trauma, abuse, or neglect. So, and those conversations, right? Most of our suffering comes from us being alone, us, not having someone to talk to about the hard things that happen to us in life. So talking about it in a community heals not only us, but it heals our communities, it heals our families, and I say it heals the world. So absolutely, Rob. If you come to Portland, we will definitely meet up for coffee, for sure, for sure. All right, so let me turn here to our Facebook group. Too many moving parts, but we are on day 58 on the journey to releasing our authentic self. The subconscious can be your friend or your enemy, right? Our subconscious both works for us, but then sometimes it can work against us. So it's important for us as we recover from trauma is to understand, right? Some of those things that are now operating on autopilot in our subconscious that maybe was set in place, I don't want to say set in stone, but deeply ingrained in our automatic patterns and our automatic thinking before we were even consciously aware of what was going on, right? So let me go on before I jump into talking about how that happens. But chances are that you were abused as a child, which taught you about the kind of people you don't want in your life, right? Most of us were abused by the people closest to us, the people that were supposed to teach us love, kindness, trust, nurturing, self-care, all those good, healthy, relationship things. Yet these were the people you were exposed to year after year against your will, right? We didn't have a choice. These were our caregivers. Because of that, they're the only ones who make your subconscious feel comfortable, right? What we grew up with growing up, what we saw in our families, the dynamics, both, with our caregivers, parents, families, siblings, even, aunts and uncles, family gatherings, get-togethers, all of that became our normal. What was, this is an acceptable way to be or cope or fit in, belong. I belong here if I follow along with this is an acceptable way to be here. So, but because of that, they're now our comfort zone. This explains why, as an adult, we continue to attract not so healthy, maybe even toxic people into our life. So the two questions that I asked today: how many toxic people have you subconsciously attracted into your life? Could be from way back when, or maybe you're bumping into some people in your life right now. Or what new boundaries do you need to set with each of these people, right? Because if we had people around us where there weren't healthy boundaries, where we didn't learn to speak up, ask for what we need, our needs were honored and respected, and chances are we struggle with speaking up about that and asking for what we need. And many of us found ourselves in very one-sided relationships, right? Very tricky, very tricky. So then the reason why I put this out in my book, and I ask this repeatedly in my 350, right, 356 day guide to healing and restoration, is because we have to remember, right? This isn't your fault, right? How and why you came to be this way is because this was your survival strategy. This is your coping strategy. This is what you did because your body and your mind and your nervous system is brilliant to keep you safe, to keep you going, and also to manage living, growing up in that environment. We also, as children, we come up with stories about ourselves and about the world. And here's the thing: when those stories become what we think that a truth, right? We take it from it just being, something that we may have thought about or even considered, to really, this is what we believe about ourselves. This is how we see ourselves and other people. You're welcome, Rob. Sue says, I seem to attract toxic people. I hear you, friend. You are not alone. Can we see by show of hands? Anybody else here having some people maybe around that, right? Maybe not the best people to hang out with. And maybe you didn't know. Maybe a few years back, you may have been fine with these people. But as you heal, as you understand that so much of who you are and how you live in the world is the impact of trauma, not who you are. It's how you learn to be to survive. But now that you're learning and recognizing it, then also you're starting to see, there is maybe something I can do about this. Maybe there's a reason why I feel just exhausted after hanging out with these people, or I keep running around like a chicken with my head cut off, taking care of everybody else all day long. And none of those people ever stop to think, well, what do you need? How are you doing today? How is your life going? How can I contribute to you? Right? That was definitely me too. And I ended up being very resentful, angry, hurt, and frustrated until I realized how I was contributing to that in some way. Let's see here. We have a question from Periscope here. How do I grow out from depression while making peace with my mom won't acknowledge her mistakes? I want to say, I'm sorry, my friend. I hear you. I see you. I feel you. You are not alone. You are not alone, right? And here's the hardest thing is that once we learn and heal, right, we sometimes can look back and see that these people that hurt us, maybe they didn't even know they were hurting us. Some of them did. And then some of them will deny it and will never admit the pain that they may have caused, right? And they may never want to apologize that they have contributed to how shitty we feel about ourselves, because if we keep being treated like this by people we think love us, then we end up feeling like there's something wrong with us. But here's the thing, it's our job now, right? We cannot control other people. We cannot, we can ask for an apology. We can ask people to listen, to hear when you talk about being hurt. But chances are that most people, especially if they are abusive, they won't. They won't. I'm going to pause here for a second, not to say that it can't happen. I was actually just talking to one of my clients this morning and sharing, right? I, cut most of my family out of my life for many, many years. I didn't speak to my mother for about 5 years because literally it was crazy making. I felt nuts every time I talked to her because she would press all those buttons, all those doubts, the guilt, all the things that I thought was wrong with me when I talked to her. Instead of me being clear, no, I was abused. That was not acceptable. I should have been protected. I should have been kept safe. All of that went out the window. Well, maybe it wasn't so bad, right? I would go back into that. And then I was back to square one in many ways. So the depression is valid. It's feeling, right, powerless over changing the past. And it's powerless over changing other people. However, what we can do, and that's what we're actively doing here, how can we take power back and take responsibility for the things that we can change now? And the thing that we can work on is to, work with that crap that in many ways has buried itself into our subconscious, that when we go into fight, flight, or freeze or struggle in life, very much we fall back into our autopilot, and there come all those old stories back up, right? So I keep taking deep breaths, hopefully modeling to you to continue to take those deep breaths. And if you're hearing this and this is hard to hear, if it's literally like makes your body curl forward, if you're having a physical response to what I'm saying, be gentle with yourself, my friend. Either place your hand on your heart, a little self-compassion practice. You can do a little butterfly hug, a little EMDR, tapping. It's a very good question that you've asked, my friend, and I will continue to share, but I just wanted to respond a little bit. Right? We make amends by making amends with ourselves, to ourselves. It is complex. It is. It is complex. But here's the thing, part of trauma and part of neglect, part of us choosing survival, literally, and for many of us, we didn't have a choice as children. Your body just takes over, disconnects you, and you go into survival mode, which means you are not feeling what's happening inside of your body. We just numb. We shut it all out. We shut it down just to be able to function in this community, family, wherever we are. Literally don't have a choice. When that's the case, we keep focusing outwards to somebody here making it different, because we didn't have a loving, caring, warm, safe presence growing up. Someone that delighted in us, someone that validated what we were feeling, someone that heard you, someone that saw you, someone that held you when you were feeling that hurt. We have no idea what that feels like, what it feels like inside of us to do that, to be that, to support ourselves in some ways. So that gets in the way of all our relationships, right? We are looking for that attachment, that connection, someone to ping me back. Do you see me? Do you hear me? Do you validate me? But when we don't get that back, right, nothing sticks. We have nothing to build on. But here's the thing. It's not too late. We can learn. Does it take time? Yes. Is it hard work? Yes. Is it worth it? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So I'm going to share from a couple of our friends in our group that have given me permission to share their journal entry from the book. And I'd love to hear from you as well. If you're having some boundary challenges in your life and in your relationships, feel free to share. Feel free to share with us. You are not alone. And again, to my Periscope friends, if you are curious about the live chat over on YouTube, the YouTube link is in my Periscope profile. So you can find us there. So let's see. Rob, you are too funny. Rachel asks here, how do we get to a place where we love ourselves so much that we attract healthy, loving people in our lives? Very good question, Rachel. Very good question. And let's see. I'm reading some comments here, so bear with me. Yes. Rob says, Rachel, I found myself in that position a few years ago. Everything was clear and it was natural, but again, it began with a real trauma. Yes. Yes. But and I guess the short version, Rachel, is that keep loving yourself. Keep learning to love yourself, because I do believe that we bring into our world people that match us, right? And if you are looking for a partner to share your life with, is that fill your heart, so the partner that you will find, right, you will have something to give to your partner, because you want to find a partner that has a full heart, has handled his past in some ways. I don't think anybody heals 100% completely, but because also in relationship, I know is where we heal a lot of this stuff. But once you're out there seeking, you want to find a person who is self-aware, right? Who loves and appreciates and respects and values themselves, because chances are, if they feel that way about themselves, they are also going to honor and respect and be loving and caring towards you. Absolutely. So I hope that answered your question. I'm so sorry, my friend. There's a question here on Periscope. How about when parents side with my abuser who traumatized me, which is my brother? I'm so sorry, my friend. I am very, very sorry. That is very, very hard. It's so, so hard. Yeah. Yeah. You're getting some feedback and comments from other people here. Well, I do want to say, it may not be exactly what you want to hear right now, but I want you to know you are not alone. You are not alone. I've been, educating adults about child sexual abuse and prevention for over 15 years. And I hear that so many times where, a person will take a stand or take a side with the perpetrator. So I'm very, very sorry that was done to you, that your family treated you that way. And I do hope, my friend, that you find your family, your tribe now that understands and that can validate you and hold you in a safe space when you heal that hurt, because that is devastating. That is devastating. I'm so sorry, my friend. Right? Allow yourself to feel that hurt and that grief. And then remember, no matter what these people think, we believe you. Find the people that believe you. We believe you. And you believe you. Right? Do the best you can to honor your truth. Safe place where you can honor your truth. I'm so sorry. Thank you for sharing that with us. I appreciate that. Let's see. Elizabeth asks, you're welcome. Thank you, guys. I'm seeing some questions. Hold on. So, Elizabeth, Svava, can you explain the benefits of being submissive to a controlling person? Something like you feel less anxious if someone takes your decisions. Well, Elizabeth, there is, I don't know exactly what you mean, but there's a matter of maybe, is it a compromise? Is it a choosing to going along with because of, right, safety, or you're choosing your battles, right? Never mind, this person is never going to hear it my way. They're never going to understand me. They're not even interested in trying, right? And if I have to engage in a conversation with this person, I'm going to get along. I'm going to go along. So the trauma is any kind of trauma. We're talking about physical, emotional, sexual, any type of trauma. We're talking about healing in this space. So a little different, for different things, but hurt people, meaning we hurt. When our heart hurts, we all hurt the same way. So does that help a little bit, Elizabeth? Yes. Excuse me. I just threw back a big smoothie before I got on here. No. Why would someone be submissive? Because of fear. Because they're afraid, right? And it's submissive can also be a part of the trauma response. Remember, we can go into fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, right? It's like, it's part of survival. I'll get along. I won't rock the boat. Yep. Rachel says, I was always a passive person going along with whatever others wanted. Yes, out of fear. Absolutely. And sometimes it happens so fast in your brain, in your nervous system, that you may not even notice. So, absolutely. So I'm going to, before I answer the next question, thank you guys for asking. I will come back to them, I promise. But I'm going to turn to our Facebook page where there is a comment from a couple of our group members who shared their journal entry from today. And then I'll come back to the questions. And then I also had some things that I wanted to share with you guys about boundaries. So see if I can cover all that today. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And sometimes it's hard for people, right? Can we agree to disagree? That is very hard for people. For some people, because their need to be right is strong, and they feel threatened unless you agree to their worldview. So yeah, it is tricky. It is tricky. So let's see here. Donna shared with us, answering the questions about having maybe toxic people in our lives and what boundaries do we need to set. So she shares with us, such beautiful share. Thank you, Donna. So amazing awareness. And I know other people will learn from your share. So here goes. Donna shares with us. There are a relatively few people I've subconsciously drawn close to because after enduring over 5.5 decades of emotional and psychological abuse, isolation, and minimal and or superficial human contact has become my norm. And you are not alone, Donna. You are not alone, my friend. She goes on to say, I was crafted to be pleasant, helpful, and on occasion entertaining. Wordlessly, it was expected that I'd be the lifelong bucket holder for the physical and emotional runoff of others. This expectation has been disguised behind a mask of categories: family duty, religion, intelligence, personal unworthiness, destiny, etc. In fact, the initial attraction all those years ago to my own spouse was partly his walled off indifference. It was so familiar. It was safe, right? We talked about that earlier. Now, many years later, feeling empty and with life in a muddle, I'm beginning to gather the boundary tools to build a more authentic life. I'm just now learning to learn how to establish boundaries. With some people, I've gone zero or minimal contact. With others, I'm beginning to practice embracing my core self. Sometimes that entails learning to speak up while still protecting my tender 4-year-old inner child. At other times, it requires repeating endlessly the lessons of mindfulness, drop the storyline, stay in the current moment. Lastly, and perhaps most foreign of all, is to administer daily large portions of self-compassion and self-acceptance. This is not easy. Thank you, Donna. Thank you, Donna. Beautiful. So beautiful. So much awareness, so much clarity. Yes, much love here to you, Donna, from the people in our group. I hear you, right? We are crafted, we become accommodating, right? We scan our environment growing up. How will I survive in this community, in this family, in this environment? And we literally make those choices consciously or unconsciously as children. And then that just becomes an automatic way of being. And we go along to get along, to not rock the boat until maybe one day, okay, cannot do this anymore, right? And I can still remember as a little girl, I think probably it was like 8 or 9, looking around my family, seeing the craziness going on, looking around at all the adults around me. And I'm like, I cannot believe that nobody's saying anything about this, right? And really thinking to myself, if this is what being a grown-up is, I'm not so sure if I want any of it. And literally just shutting it all down, just taking a deep breath and pushing it all very deep into my core, and just like a zombie, moving on through much of my childhood into my adulthood until I finally started healing, until I finally started, okay, something has to change. So thank you so much. Thank you so much. And again, because of that not feeling, right, we don't understand anything about healthy boundaries, that we can say no, right? That we can, our opinions can be heard and valued and respected by other people, even though they don't necessarily agree with all of them, right? We don't necessarily learn to share, kind of appropriately. Sometimes as survivors, we go from no sharing to oversharing. And it's just because sometimes I remember for myself in the beginning, when I found someone that finally listened to me, I definitely overshared, because I was just like, I can't believe this person, is willing to hear. And then after a while, it's like, oh, shoot, I think I said too much. Because there's also wasn't personal context to my inner experience, but I could see what I was sharing, how it showed up on that person's face, right? So yeah, when we don't learn those healthy boundaries, then we often create very rigid boundaries, or we have boundaries that are kind of, open. We get too involved with other people, or we avoid other people altogether, right? It's like that delicate balance. We either avoid intimacy, or we get involved too deep, too fast, too soon, right? Instead of taking our time to really getting to, understand the person before we dive in. So it is tricky. It is tricky. But again, it takes time. All right. Hey, Wanda. Hey, Wanda. Glad you're here. Thanks for checking in. Yes. Yes. Rachel says, I used to overshare and I still have to be careful with that. Yep. Yes. Or being too accepting of people without even knowing them. Yep. Elizabeth says, yes, oversharing is a thing, but you know what? I want to live an authentic life. I don't care that much about what people know or don't about me. I hear you, Elizabeth. Absolutely hear you. That used to be the case for me as well, meaning it was more like I overshared or said something, and then I would be like, oh, shoot. I was worried about what they did with the information. So it backfired in that way. So, hey, Sharon. Hey, friend. Let's see here. I'm going to scroll through our Instagram. I said I was going to come back. Some questions here. Why do I always attract aggressive and angry men who start off nice in the beginning? There we go, right? There's some, right, manipulation going on there, right? They're trying to get in with you, trying to maybe pretend to be something that they are not, right? And then they show their true colors. Again, teaches us Take our time, get to know people, really get to know people. I'm very sorry that you were physically abused. Absolutely. We can get PTSD from those things. Absolutely. I'm very sorry. Very sorry to hear that. What does setting a boundary mean? Right? Asking, for what we need, communicating our needs, and when people overstep our boundaries, are disrespectful, treat us poorly, don't keep their words with us, those are all ways that can represent a boundary. So thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate that. So thank you again, Donna. Thank you so much. Such powerful, beautiful sharing. Rob says here, he goes on to share with us, that's a great explainer for today's question. How did I forget this one from the last 2 years? I guess I have a hyper high security fence style boundaries coupled with a too stosh attitude and some isolation, which mean I either repel toxic or don't let anyone close in enough to filter toxic and non-toxic. So maybe my question too should be, how do I need to modify my boundaries and attitude to let non-toxic in and only filter out toxic people? Very good question. Very good question. And like I mentioned earlier, so if we talk about personal boundaries, I found this, actually Sue had shared with us in one of the groups. So I'm going to pull that up right here. So good question. So I'm going to give you an examples of a rigid boundary, a porous boundary, and then a healthy boundary. All right, are you game? So a rigid boundary keeps other people away, doesn't ask for help. So just for you guys to maybe make a note, where are you? What boundaries can you relate to? Keeps other people away, doesn't ask for help, is protective of information. And what I mean by that, protective of information, maybe you don't sometimes say things because you worry about how people are going to use it against you. That was me years ago. May seem detached, avoids intimacy, avoids close relationships, avoids possibility of rejection. Avoids possibility of rejection. And this goes for so many of us who have been hurt by the people closest to us. Being rejected hurts. That is. So hold on. We're going to move on to a healthy boundary soon. And then this last one is keeps everyone out. So a porous boundary would be overshares personal information, struggles to say no, easily influenced by the opinions of others, feels responsible for happiness of others, gets involved in the problems of others, gossiping, right? May accept disrespectful behavior, fearful of rejection, and lets anyone in. Now, the third one, healthy personal boundaries, says no without guilt. Show of hands. Who here struggles with no? Right? No, thank you. No explanation, right? The list goes on. Values, own opinions. You value your own opinion. Appropriately shares personal information. Can communicate wants and needs. Thank you, friend. doesn't compromise values, accepts decisions of others, chooses who to let in and who to keep out. Right? Who do we let in and who do we keep out? Has nothing to do with them being family, right? Blood relatives, any of that. So I found this very helpful. So just take a look, right? And to remember, for so many of us, the reason why we have both the ridges and the porous boundaries, we struggle with boundaries, is because no one modeled them for us. We adults, humans, learn from other humans. We learn from other humans. And if nobody communicated healthy boundaries in a safe way, we have no idea. We have no idea. A little bit of all of those. Yep. Right? And that's it. We're all work in progress. That's why we're here, guys, right? We're learning. We are learning how to do this. We are learning how to do this. So here's the thing. When to understand where are you coming from when it comes to your boundary, as to what's your intention? What is your intention behind the boundary that you're setting? Is it to try to control, right? Because you are afraid maybe what they're going to do to you, or you want to control them or manipulate them in some ways, or, right? Because if you as a loving adult are setting a boundary, it's something that you set for yourself, because you are letting the other person know in a healthy way, these are my values, these are my boundaries, this is, how I want to be treated, this is how I want to be talked to, and obviously this is how you treat them, right? Your boundaries should be communicated through your actions, how you live and interact with other people. Absolutely. Exactly. Best interest. Exactly. So, another person that I'm a huge fan of, and you guys have heard me talk about Dr. Margaret Paul and her work. She talks about, are you setting this boundary from fear, or are you setting this boundary out of love? Because if you are setting a boundary from fear, chances are you're trying to control, you're trying to defend, you're trying to protect. And if that's what's happening, chances are you're doing this from your wounded self. And chances are even that you're doing it from your inner child. If you are doing it from love, right? You are doing it from your loving adult self, right? So to discern, again, the intent, like I said, of a loving adult is to set a boundary that is taking good care of you. That is like self-preservation, is taking good care of your highest self. And if you're taking really good care of your highest self, guess what? It's also gonna be for the other people's best self. Exactly. It's a boundary out of confidence and acceptance of yourself, right? You confidently know and trust and respect and value where you're coming from. And when you're doing that, you are empowered. You are loving and kind because you respect yourself. So let me give you an example. I'm pulling this from Dr. Margaret Paul. The intent of a loving adult is setting a boundary. In setting a boundary is to take a loving care of oneself in the moment. The loving adult knows that a boundary is something that you set for yourself, letting the other person know what you're going to do if their unloving behavior continues. As an example, right? The next time you are late, I will take my own car. Nothing personal. I just don't want to sit around waiting, right? That's my boundary. I value my time. Like to be on time. So the loving adult discerns whether another person is open or closed, loving or unloving. The loving adult is compassionately aware of the feelings of the inner child in the moment, right? So another example, in my marriage, 27 years, in the beginning of my marriage, we were two kids, both our inner childs trying to manipulate each other in getting the love that we needed because we did not know yet how to love ourselves, right? So as I healed myself and developed this loving adult that I am today, and I was able to become the parent and the protector of my inner child, when my husband would be telling me something or sharing or whatever was going on, if he couldn't communicate to me what he was trying to communicate from loving kindness, then I would say, listen, honey, I hear you think you're trying to help me or coach me or, right, give me advice. But what I'm hearing right now, because I'm in touch with my heart and my inner child is feeling judged right now. Like this is hurtful. What you're saying hurts. So unless you can find a way to say what you're trying to say with love, kindness, and respect, the way you would talk to your best friend or the way you would want me to give you some advice, I would like you to stop. And of course, it took a while. He didn't like it. And there were times where he would say that back to me and I didn't like it. But then it makes sense, right? Of course, we want to give advice and support or encouragement from a kind place. Because if other people are trying to tell you what to do from fear, they're trying to control and manipulate. Because there's probably something else that they're wanting from you, but they're not being clear. I hear you. You're welcome, Elizabeth. Yes, learning to set boundaries out of love and respect for myself. Yes. Yes. And Rachel says, I'm still learning to even get in touch with how I feel that deep down and how to communicate all that. I wish I could have those words, right words to say. Absolutely. And Rachel, this came from practice. And in the beginning, right, I would literally shut down, right? Because if my husband or anybody else would be telling me something when I was fully in my wounded self, right, my traumatized self, all I heard is, you're bad, you're wrong, there's something wrong with you. And then I would just turn on myself. See, here it is. You are just worthless. You cannot do anything right. He's just going to leave. You are just not good enough, right? All those automatic subconscious beliefs I had about myself would then feed that. And that's what I would take in. Then guess how I would react? Because exactly, Rachel. And then because I felt hurt by him, I wasn't in touch with that's really what I was doing to myself, I would turn on him, right? Then I'd be angry and hurt and try to control him. it was not fun or pretty for many years, right? So until I learned that actually asking, having a boundary, like, listen, this does not feel good. What you're telling me, this is what I'm hearing. It hurts. Yes, it is. It was hard to stop that pattern, Rachel. But once I learned how to do this, I spoke up even when my knees were shaking and my teeth were rattling. It was scary. It was hard. But I was just like, listen, I cannot listen to you, right, criticizing me in this way, because this is what happens inside of me when you say those things. This is what I need. If you want to contribute to me, if you want to be my friend, right, this is what I need. My Periscope friend here says, it's more like having your inner child in check. Yes, having my inner child in check from a place of, I'm the mom and the protector, right? I became the one who understood my inner child. I was the one who turned up the volume on those deep, subconscious core beliefs that I had about myself, that I was a piece of shit, which is simply not true. That's how I was treated. But I made it mean that there was something wrong with me. So the more I was like, no, I hear you, baby girl. I see you. I feel you. Of course you're scared. But I'm the parent now, and I'm going to stand up for you. And because my inner child I was just telling a client this morning, my inner child hated my husband, didn't want to have anything to do with him. So I had to keep telling her, you're not the one in this marriage. I am. My adult self. I had to get her out of there. But she was so used to being in charge because I was stunted, frozen back as a little child in this big body. It wasn't until I practiced connecting with this inner child, learning to connect with her, listen to her, and love her, and learn to love and take care of this body, that slowly but surely I grew up, literally from the inside out. And then because of all that loving hard work that I've done for the sake of this terrified little girl that lives inside of me. And actually, there's a whole tribe of little children inside of me. There isn't just one, right? I work so hard now, not with resentment, to love this body, because inside of this body, are these little creatures that deserve so much love. They've been through enough already. I'm here now. I'm here now. I'm here now. Loving and accepting all of this, all of me, all the layers. I'm so happy to hear Rachel. Happy to share. Some of this that I have learned, right, it wasn't fun or pretty. Trust me, my friends. But we can. And in us sharing this, and me sharing this with you, gives you an idea, right, of what is possible. That's why I'm here having this conversation. We need to normalize these conversations about healing, because not a lot of people talk about this openly. And I needed to hear it openly. I didn't know how to have these conversations. This is where my support groups that I was in for years saved my life. Yes, neuroplasticity. We are changing, my friends. It's never too late. Your body, your nervous system, your brain, your mind, thank you, is always optimizing for health, right? Our job as part of our healing is to pull out that junk, those terrible stories that we carry about ourselves. Just learn to, I know it's not just, but slowly but surely learning to love honor and respect who you are. Your beautiful spirit, your amazing, brilliant, beautiful, capable, powerful body. And we're doing this together, my friends, here in this community. So, all right, I went on a little tyrant tonight. But I'm glad you're here. So glad you're here, friends. Thank you for your questions and your comments. I pulled the card for us today, like I do. What made you install Periscope? Because I wanted to get this message out to more people. I wanted to have as many people as possible hear some of the messages and some of the things that I have learned, right? And that's why I wrote my book, Releasing Your Authentic Self. And that's why I work as a trauma recovery coach. And you can find my YouTube link in the Periscope profile. And here, this is the card for us today. One day, she woke up and restored balance to her life. So that's it. That's our assignment for this weekend. Find some balance. Find some balance. Do something that brings joy, that makes your heart sing. And with that, thank you so much for the hearts over here on Periscope. And please, friends, if this is helpful to you over here on YouTube, please give me a thumbs up. It all helps. And feel free to share. So I really appreciate you guys being here and sharing. I will be back here. I'm here Tuesdays and Thursdays, 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Most weeks, if I'm not here, I've taken a self-care day. So, but if you want to join our community, we have a closed Facebook group where we share our daily journals from the book. But with that, thank you so much. And I wish you a beautiful weekend. And I look forward to seeing you guys here on Tuesday. All right, friends. Bye now.